Welcome to the ISO with myself, your host, Dan Dickau on the Gonzaga Nation Media Network. Today's guest, one of the best analysts out there, former head coach of St. John's of New Mexico, of Manhattan. He is also a new head coach. I can't wait to hear a little bit more about it for USA Basketball and one of their new endeavors in the world of 3-on-3, which anyone here in Spokane knows how big 3-on-3 is because of Hoop Fest. So without further ado, Coach Fran Fraschilla, thanks for joining.
Dan, it's always a pleasure. We go back many years. You know how much I love the Zags and Coach Few. And anytime I can get a chance to talk hoop with you, I'm always in. So glad to be with you for a few minutes today.
All right. Well, let's just jump right into the 3-on-3 head coach opportunity that came up. I want to hear more about this.
I'll tell you, I wish you were like 5 years younger because I think I could have convinced you to play. It is a great, there's no 30-second elevator pitch. I have to explain this to people. It's 3-on-3, half court, 12-second shot clock. And it is crazy fast. It's like if 5-on-5 was the mile run, this is the 200-meter hurdles. You got to be in condition. You got to be agile. You got to be quick. And it's an Olympic sport now. Kelsey Plum from the state of Washington, Huskies. She was on the gold medal team in Tokyo, made up of WNBA players. Our men did not qualify. It is a very popular sport in Asia. It's a very popular sport in Europe because you only need 4 players, 3 play at a time. And USA Basketball is great at everything except men's 3-on-3, in part because it's a new sport. So I've been tasked with kind of building an Olympic type program. We have a 6-man team. We'll travel 4 to every tournament this summer, Europe, Edmonton, Asia. And 5 of the 6 guys that are on my team are good G League players. And these are kids that still want to play in the NBA, but it's a great summer job because they can make some money on the pro tour. Think of it as beach volleyball compared to volleyball. That's what 3-on-3 is. You guys know Hoop Fest. So you have a little bit of idea in Spokane in the Northwest of what I'm talking about. But with the 12-second shot clock, Dan, it is a crazy fast-paced game.
Yeah, that 12-second shot clock, it's got me ready to play just because there's plenty of shots for everyone.
Yes.
Defensively, you're going to have to be in great shape to kind of, get back in position. So let me guess, clarify the rules. Rebound happens. You have to clear it past the 3-point line or a designated spot.
Yeah, you got to take it out. You play to 21 like we did in the playground in the Y. 1 point inside the arc, it's 1 point. Outside the arc, it's 2. So it's worth a little bit more. The 3-point shot is worth a little more in what we call 3x3. You pretty much have to sub on every dead ball because it's a very tiring game. And it's tailor-made for the 6'3 to 6'7 skilled athletic guy. Like a Matt Bolden would have been great at this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'd have been recruiting the hell out of Matt to play for us because in that 6'5" guy who can guard all 3 positions, the wing spots, put it on the floor, maybe post up a little. It's that versatile 6'5", 6'6", 6'7" guy that really fits the game. Not that there's not room for a 6'2" scorer. There is for sure. But it's a fun, fast-paced, athletic game. And it's catching on in Europe. It's catching on, like I said, in Asia. And we're just trying to catch up. And by the way, we have a lot of players that are going to be great at this. They just don't know about it yet. And I'm tasked with convincing them. Like if you took like Jimmy Butler at the end of his career, if he decided at 35 he wanted to play a little bit more basketball, this would be a great summer sport for him to continue to play and maybe play on an Olympic team. So I'm working at it. I'm pumped up about it.
Well, it sounds like you are excited about it. And I like it because I think 3-on-3,
yeah,
it's great for younger kids to develop, as well as the older players that are college and pro, to teach specific points. But
yes,
it's also because there's more touches. You're involved in every piece of the action. And so you learn, I think, from 3-on-3 much quicker. Is that part of the building of it to get to the youth and talk to them about it that way?
I'll tell you, Dan, I've talked to college coaches about this. This is a great summertime workout for your team when you don't want to just beat them into the ground. It's great for youth development. when we had our training camp a few weeks ago in Springfield, Massachusetts, and we had mostly G League guys. We had them for 12 days until we picked the team. The skill level of the guys improved from day 1 to day 12 because, to your point, everybody has to handle the ball. But more importantly, everybody has to make quick decisions because the shot clock comes at you quick. Mm-hmm. And so 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, guys have to really think the game, and they have to play a lot of two-man basketball. You really have to be cerebral as well as athletic. And we're going to be the most athletic team on the European tour this summer. We're just not going to have the cerebralness and experience of teams that have been together for 5 years plus. And I think we'll catch up eventually. But to your point about making quick decisions and skill development, it is a great youth development deal, to the point where we had Jimmy Barron, who was a terrific player in Europe, came to our training camp. He's the skill development guy down at IMG Academy. And they're already implementing 3x3 down at IMG.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I have a Shoot 360 gym now in Spokane. I might try to add some of this towards some of our programming later this summer, because I think it's a great idea.
Yeah. Use the shot clock. And also, if you need any help, we're here to help you.
Awesome. I'm going to reach out offline and get some more information on that. Now, let's go back and talk about one of our passions, and that's college basketball.
Yes.
It's been a topsy-turvy offseason with transfer portal, NIL, guys going to the draft and then withdrawing their names. Who's been the biggest winner or winners in college basketball's offseason?
It's a good question. I would say the biggest loser is the fans, because you don't know who's on your team.
True.
And it's not, hey, listen, I'm all for it. I get the NIL. I get maybe transferring one time, be eligible right away. Maybe your coach leaves, you get another opportunity to transfer. But I am not putting together. I'm not going to start studying college basketball rosters and articles until October 1st, because who knows who's going to be where. So, I mean, the biggest winners obviously are those schools that not only have won successfully. Let's take Gonzaga. It's so close to home. Mark and the staff and other schools, a few other schools, have figured out in recent years that guys that transfer aren't necessarily guys with a checkered background. Okay. And if you look at the guys that have transferred to Gonzaga over the last 20 years, there's been some amazing success stories. That's going to be true again of college basketball. And so I think what you have to do is navigate the transfer portal in a way that you can't necessarily, and I think Gonzaga is even probably in this situation too, to some degree, Dan. You can't build a roster the way you used to. It's rare that a Drew Timme is going to be around for 3 or 4 years if they're a great college player. And so what Mark and Coach Few's been able to do, getting that transfer to play 1 or 2 years, I think that's the new wave. And you almost have to be a junior college coach or a G League coach, GM, to be a college basketball coach now, because you got so much coming and going. And obviously Gonzaga's done that well through the years, and it's worked great for them. And I think other coaches are trying to go to school on how the transfer situation works and how the portal works.
Yeah, I think you mentioned about the G League and the managing of rosters. Eric Musselman, I think, does as good a job as anybody in college basketball because he had that CBA background. He had that NBA background.
Yes.
That he can mix and match lineups in rosters in no time. But I think you're seeing a number of coaches just say, hey, this is different. I'm not in this anymore. And I'm not saying that's why Coach K retired or Roy Williams did a year ago. But Jay Wright recently retired when I think a lot of people thought he had another 5-6 years, however long he wanted to coach.
Yeah.
Do you think there's going to be more coaches that are just going to be like, hey, enough's enough. This is just a more different than I signed up for?
There'll probably be some of that. I know, in Coach Wright's case, because my son Matt has been on their staff as the video coordinator, I knew a few weeks before that Coach Wright, I don't think it really had anything to do. Now, I'm sure it's tougher now than it was 20 years ago, but no, I think Coach Wright at 60 years old, 2 national titles, grown children, plenty of money, probably a chance to go to TV if he wants to do it. I thought that was a perfect opportunity. I think you and I would probably agree that we would not be surprised right in the middle of what has been a great career if Coach Few decides, hey, I'm going to go fishing full time. There's certain guys I don't think need it like other guys need it. And I think that's where Coach Wright was. But I talked to Kelvin Sampson about this during last summer. We were talking about NIL and transfer portals, and he said, hey, when you and I got into coaching, believe it or not, Dan, I'm this old, there was no 3-point line. And he said, when you and I got into coaching, there was no shot clock. That's how old I am, by the way. And he goes, we figured it out. We'll figure out the transfer portal and we'll figure out NIL. So I think most coaches are going to be able to do that. It's just different, and you got to adjust, and you have to live in the portal. You can't just survive on just high school kids. And very few schools can do what Jay Wright did or Tony Bennett's doing or Mark Few, but you have to reinvent yourself, I think, in order to be successful at coaching. And you're going to have to be more like Eric Musselman and less like the old school guys like Boeheim and Roy Williams.
Some great names were thrown around right there. And we talk about, though, the management of roles and rosters. Yeah. Duke just did something unique. Coach John Shires, in his first year as a head coach, yes, they went and actually hired a general manager. Yeah. What's the inside scoop that you know of as far as handling responsibilities? Because, that is creative as it gets. I think that's a phenomenal move by John Shire.
It's funny. We had our training camp, a second training camp, 3x3 training camp at Duke last week. And so I got to see Coach Shire. And the next day he hired Rachel Baker from Nike. By the way, she's the daughter of Rod Baker. I don't know if you knew Rod. Rod's been a longtime college coach, NBA scout. And so it's beautiful. Her background is the NBA and Nike. And I think more and more the elite schools are going to go to a situation where everything's buttoned up. NIL, the amount of money you can make legally as an athlete at a place like Duke or Gonzaga. These smart coaches are going to, listen, these kids are pros now, Dan. They are. Yeah. There's no two ways about it, especially in the top 75. They are de facto pro players. And so you have to have a professional mindset when you're putting together your team and recruiting the best players in the country. And I thought it was brilliant on Coach Shire's part to think outside the box, and other coaches are going to do the same thing.
Let's go to the NBA draft now. It's less than a week and a half away. It's one of the most fun times as a fan because you can speculate in so many different directions. Yeah. I think there's a clear-cut top three, and that's Chet, Jabari Smith, and Banchero. But it could go any direction.
I'm going to disagree. I'm going to disagree. I'm going to say it's top four with Jaden Ivey from Purdue.
Do you think he could sneak into that top three?
I do.
Really?
I do. I think he can. But yes, I think it's the three bigs. And in my opinion, Jaden Ivey.
Okay. I was impressed with his game when I saw it last year. I never saw it in person due to my broadcasting roles never took me to Purdue. But if he were to fall to four, if I'm not mistaken, 4 is Sacramento. They just drafted Mitchell a season ago.
Yep.
You, with your insider coverage of the NBA draft every year, what do the average fan not understand about the wheeling and dealings leading up to draft day?
Well, I would say, first of all, that my own personal philosophy and the philosophy of others is unless two guys are exactly even, no matter what the position, take the best player. Like if Jaden Ivey, if you think he's going to be Russell Westbrook, which I kind of do, I heard John Morant, but he's not really a playmaker. He's more of that up and down, athletic, crazy, fast twitch scorer. If you think he's going to be Russell Westbrook, then you figure out a way. And there's nobody else at 4 if you're the Kings. I do think the Kings, the Pistons, the Pacers, the Blazers are all going to look to make trades if they're not happy with not getting one of the big three, or if Ivey's gone, because then I think that, I think you're going to see some trading in that top 10 to try to get a veteran player. Like Sacramento could definitely use a veteran player if they're not convinced that Jaden Ivey is a superstar, because to your point, they got 2 young, really good guards. So I think there's a lot of conversation going on behind the scenes that people don't realize. I'm always of the opinion, take the best player available. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I've studied these guys. I don't know who the best player of the big three are. I can make a legitimate argument for Jabari Smith, for Chet Holmgren, or Paolo Banchero. And I'm not sure, Dan, honestly, who the best is going to be. I do know this: if you're the Orlando Magic, A, you can't get it wrong, and B, what they don't have is a bona fide go-to first option scorer. Wendell Carter's gotten better. We think Jalen Suggs is going to be a good player in time. Cole Anthony, Markelle Fultz, but Jabari Smith looks like a lot rock solid NBA All-Star with that shooting stroke, athleticism. And then you watch Chet play and you say, wait a minute, is this kid one of those Giannis type guys that if we don't take him, we're going to regret missing out on the shot blocking, the athleticism, shooting 80% at the rim, at 7-1, handling the ball in the open court like I've seen him do. So I'm not smart enough to figure out who the best of those three is right now. I just hope that the Magic figure it out. I will say one other thing about this. Sam Presti has gotten it right many times, and it wouldn't shock me if he took Jaden Ivey at number 2 if his guy is not there at number 2.
Wow, interesting. I'm gonna have to keep that one in the back of my mind as I do more reading and then watching the draft in the next couple of days. Let's go to the WCC. The league was tremendous last year. 3 teams, obviously, in the tournament. Santa Clara, if they didn't have injuries and some COVID issues, they may have made the tournament. BYU faltered down the stretch. But this league keeps getting better. And now you get some impact transfers. Coach Steve Lavin comes back to the sidelines after broadcasting. What are you seeing with the WCC?
I think it took longer than I expected, but I honestly thought that the success of Gonzaga would make everybody better, because you have to, in order to compete, the big fish in the small pond every year is Gonzaga. I think finally teams are not necessarily catching up to Gonzaga. At times, St. Mary's has been there with them and BYU, but I think that what makes the league so watchable now is that the middle and the bottom of the league is getting better and better, to the point where either they're in contention for at-large bids or they're definitely postseason NIT teams. And, a lot of that has to do with coaching. But quite frankly, Dan, given how dominant Gonzaga has been, the only team that's really kept pace with them over 20 years is St. Mary's. And I guess to a lesser extent what BYU has done since coming into the league. In order for the league to be at its best, and for Gonzaga to be at its best, as crazy as it sounds, the Santa Claras, the Loyola Marymount's, maybe USD, certainly, Pacific has gotten better here. San Francisco, obviously, with what Coach Smith and Kyle Golden did. So I think the WCC is probably the best it's been ever. But in order for it to keep getting better, in order for Gonzaga to continue to have the success they're having, getting number 1 seeds, it definitely helps the better the WCC gets, even if it means occasionally Gonzaga getting upset at San Francisco or a place like San Diego.
Yeah. Well, we talked a little bit about not diving into rosters early in the summer, because there's still some transfers that might kind of settle themselves out. But when you take a quick look at Gonzaga's team for next year, obviously, the roster pretty well. Or do you have any glaring concerns early?
I don't really. I don't know much about the high school kids coming in. Obviously, getting not everybody, most of the guys to come back is, I think, is a win. I said this early last season, and, I joked about it, but I think Drew Timmy's got a chance to be Mr. Zag, of the all-time greats. Like I did that thing recently, the Mount Rushmore, right, of Zag basketball.
I saw that on Twitter, yeah.
You know what I mean? And like you and I know Frank Burgess. Most fans don't know like the impact Frank Burgess had, or, Adam Morrison, or, I'll throw you in that tier, you look at Gonzaga and I think of Drew Timme, and I think this guy could be the most prolific, John Stockton, of course, how could I forget John, but the most prolific Zag ever could be Drew Timme if he stays all 4 years, and the numbers he'll put up, 3-time All-American. So, with Strother back, with Rasir Bolton back, with Drew Timme, I'd say that's a terrific starting point to start your season. Who's transferred in now? Remind me, because I'm losing my mind. I'm on the draft. I'm on.
Yeah, no, Efton Reed, the big man from LSU, who I
That's a
think
potential.
he's got a ton of potential.
Yep.
And then the Malachi Smith, who was the SoCon Player of the Year from Chattanooga.
Yep.
And I talked to assistant coach Stephen Gentry the other day. They're getting ready for summer school sessions, and Nolan Hickman and Hunter Salas have both made strides since the season has ended. So
yeah,
I think it's only a matter of time. I know you're good friends with Coach Few. You can quietly pull for programs as an analyst, but you can't do it like with too much vigor in on air. But what would it mean for you, for Coach Few and Gonzaga, to win a title?
It'd be phenomenal. He's been a longtime friend. Like guys like Coach Izzo and Jay Wright, Scott Drew, by the way, all close friends of his, as you know. They do it the right way. There's a standard of excellence, not only in the basketball program, but the way the basketball team is represented. Your university, you're a graduate, has been exemplary. And, if you were a young coach trying to identify with a mentor, you couldn't find anybody better than Coach Few. And so that's what I've always appreciated about him. But the other thing I appreciate about him, and I said this, and he said I was exactly right. Before they played Baylor in the national championship game, I tweeted out on a Sunday that no matter what happened Monday night, Wednesday morning, he'd be fishing in the Spokane River. And he said to me later on, a few months later, you were right. He was, And so I just love his even-keeled approach. He's one of the most competitive people you'll ever meet, but away from the court, he's pretty low-key family guy. And, I certainly do pull for my friends. It doesn't manifest itself on the air like when you broadcast a game. We have to be neutral. I had a son played at Oklahoma. I did a ton of Oklahoma games. Oklahoma fans didn't like me because they thought I was being biased against Oklahoma. You'll never win that battle when you're in broadcasting.
Yep.
But I admire what he's done over 20 years. I was at the game in '99 where they had a chance to beat UConn, and that was the beginning of the renaissance of what has been now, I think, a blue blood program in college basketball.
Yep, it is a blue blood program now, that's for sure. So, Fran, I appreciate the time. I look forward to connecting again on some of this 3-on-3.
We'll talk
stuff, because that sounds fascinating, and I think it's definitely a way that young players can learn skills and concepts much quicker. So, appreciate the time, and enjoy the NBA draft as well that's coming up.
Dan, it's always a pleasure. I look forward to catching up with you soon.